20 Flight Rock, Eddie Cochran, a fun hit that I first heard in the local flicks. There were two cinemas in Waltham Cross. The Embassy was the smarter one, a lovely Art Deco building that boasted a balcony, an organ, and even a cafe. The Regent, right over the road from it, was a more basic place, to say the least, and went by the rather unflattering local nickname of the Flea Pit. Cheshunt also had a cinema, the Central, which I went to occasionally as a little kid. It had the even more unflattering nickname of the Bug Hutch. When I was a teenager, whatever little pocket money I had left after I had spent most of it at Marsden's generally went on trips to the pictures. And the Embassy was where in 1957 I went to see a movie called The Girl Can't Help It, starring one of the hotshot Hollywood bombshells of the time, Jane Mansfield. The Girl Can't Help It was a musical comedy in which Jane played Jerry Jordan, a woman being forced into a singing career against her will, and it was a big deal for rock and roll fans. This was because the movie had a great soundtrack and cameo appearances by Little Richard, Gene Vincent, and this guy, Eddie Cochran. Halfway through the film, Jerry Jordan's mobster boyfriend phones her up and orders her to switch on the television to watch a star whose charisma and clever moves she should try to emulate on stage. Jerry runs across the room, turns on the set, and gazes avidly as Eddie Cochran performs 20 Flight Rock. And it is quite a performance, handsome in a sharp pink jacket and his hair coaxed into a perfect quiff. Cochran hunches over his guitar, jumps from foot to foot, and waggles his knees as he fires out the catchy song. Fixing the camera with a piercing stare, he looks every inch the stylish rock and roller. Like Elvis, it was a very physical performance. 20 Flight Rock is a story song about a young guy who goes around to visit his girlfriend on a Saturday night, hoping for a dance and to hold her tight, but her apartment is right up on the 20th floor, and when he arrives at her building, he hits a major snag. The elevator's broken down. Well, our love-long hero starts the long ascent up 20 flights of stairs. It gets tougher and tougher. By the 12th floor, he's starting to drag. By the time he reaches the 15th, he's ready to sag. When he finally gets to the top and his girl's flat, he's totally wiped out. I'm too tired to rock. It's a song that requires a twinkle in the eye as you sing it, and Eddie certainly had that, especially in the movie. The lyrics were suggestive, but it was a gentle, sweet humor rather than anything too over the top. It's simple, harmless fun, suffused with that sense of innocence that I miss today. 20 Flight Rock is very much a rock and roll song, but the humor and the comic narrative are suggestive of country music. As I've already said, country singers made some of the best early rock and roll records, and a great song will always lend itself to any genre. By the time The Girl Can't Help It and 20 Flight Rock came out, Norman, Terry, and I had started playing local gigs as the Drifters. We stuck the song into our live set straight away. It was easy to learn, those 3 chords again, and I always looked forward to singing it. It was a highlight of our shows. Eddie Cochran was an amazing talent. There was a definite Elvis influence, both in his vocal and his stage moves. But he was hardly unique in that. Let's face it, we were all stealing from Elvis. Me more than most. And where he actually outdid Elvis was that, as well as a great performer, he was a brilliant songwriter. Eddie had told his fiancée Sharon that he would stay in the studio to concentrate on writing songs and making records. Yet he needed money to support them in the meantime, so had reluctantly accepted the offer to tour Britain. The last night of the tour was at Bristol Hippodrome on the 16th of April. After the show, Eddie, Sharon, and Jean Vincent got a taxi back to London in the early hours to get ready to fly home to America. The taxi driver, who was only 19 years old, was speeding and smashed his car into a concrete lamppost in Chippenham. Sharon later said that as the car crashed, Eddie flung himself over her in the back seat to try to protect her from the impact. She and Jean Vincent were hurt, and Eddie Cochran was flung out of the car and smashed his head against the road. He never regained consciousness and died the next day. Eddie Cochran dying so young was an unmitigated tragedy. The only consolation for us as fans was that he never got a chance to tarnish his legend. James Dean was famously fond of saying, "Live fast, die young, and leave a good-looking corpse." In many ways, it's a fitting epitaph for Eddie. He'll always be that hip young dude in the Girl Can't Help It, his eyes twinkling, climbing the stairs to the 20th floor, only to get there too tired to rock. And that image will live on forever.